Hello, family. Thank you for tuning into this video. Hey, look, if you've been following my content now for the last couple of weeks, you've noticed that I've rolled out a series of videos speaking to some of the hottest suburbs in different regional hubs. And now I've decided to put one big one together and have a look at the top 5 hottest suburbs in regional Queensland over the last 12 months. So if you're an investor, stick around. I think you're going to get some tremendous value out of what I'm going to cover here today. Some of you guys might look at some of these suburbs and go, oh, Troy, I think the opportunity may have ceased here. But what I wanted to tell you is that just like how success leaves clues, suburbs too leaves clues. And I think if we can dive in and look at the characteristics of some of these suburbs, I think we might be able to pinpoint where the next best opportunity might be for you if you are looking to invest in regional Queensland. And in addition to that, these suburbs that I mentioned today might even still be ripe for the picking also. So I'm super excited to dive in and have a look at what were some of the hottest suburbs over the last 12 months here in regional Queensland, guys. Stick around, and again, thank you for tuning in, family. All right, before we dive in, I'm just going to give my business a plug here. So my name is Troy Simbassini. I am the owner and head of research of Capricorn Life Buyers Agency. Capricorn Life Buyers Agency is one of our subsidiary brands under the Life group of companies. So we've got Capricorn Life servicing the central Queensland area, and our key markets are Rockhampton, Mackay, Gladstone, and Bundaberg. We've also got Tropical Life up in Cairns, Townsville, and Port Douglas servicing the North Queensland area, and we've been around now for the last 6 years and purchased more than $200 million worth of residential and commercial real estate in these markets. So we're very active, and we pride ourselves on having a boots on ground service model. And we've helped a lot of investors that are generally struggling with trying to buy in these markets, investors that want to lean on some local knowledge and expertise, and time poor investors, and those that are generally geographically challenged. We've helped a lot of people over the years. So if you feel as though you fall in any of those categories, feel free to reach out to me and the team. More than happy to have a preliminary consultation just to see where you're at and see if we might be able to add value. But you can give us a call on that number or visit us on that website if you want to have a chat with me or one of my team members. Cheers, guys. So just to give you some context around these 5 suburbs that I'm going to be diving in today. So they consist of the best performing suburbs in terms of their median house price growth over the last 12 months. So they've had the most or the highest median house price growth across all of the big regional Queensland hubs. So basically from Bundaberg all the way through to Cairns and everywhere in between, we've looked at all of those big regional hubs and basically filtered through all their different suburbs and came up with the top 5 suburbs that have had the highest median house price growth over the last 12 months. And the first suburb we've started off with here, as you can see, is in Townsville, and it's a suburb called Bowley Plains. So let's analyze this suburb now. So Bowley Plains, for those that don't know, Bowley Plains sits on what I would say the northwest side of Townsville, and it has roughly 1,700 unique households, an unoccupied percentage sitting around 57%, median rent of around $520 per week, current vacancy rate of 1%, and its yield based on the purchase price and rent per week works out to be roughly 4.2%. So that's the high level suburb data there, and this is what we'll be doing for each of these suburbs, is providing some high level suburb profile data so you can get some context around the nature of that suburb as well. But here's a bit of analysis as to what was driving the suburb as well from a demand and supply perspective over the last 12 months. So you can see here that Bowley Plain, its median house price has increased by 31% in the last 12 months. So it's done some fantastic numbers there, and it's come in at number 1 as the highest and fastest growing suburb over the last 12 months. And you can see there, it's come off a base of 435,000. So essentially increasing by $195,000, resulting in a median house price currently of $630,000. So yeah, this is very true, guys. If you jump on realestate.com and you actually scroll back 12 months ago on your typical 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Bowley Plains, you could have picked it up for 420, 430, 450, and now your average 422. If you scroll right now on realestate.com, majority of them are like high 500s, low 600s, and the better quality bills are like in the 700,000s now. So this market has really, really accelerated over the last 12 months. And I think it needed to because it underperformed for so many years prior to, the last 12 months, and it was really in for a huge growth period because that is quite a nice area of Townsville as well. It has some nice streets, some nice properties, some good public parklands. It's in a quite nice, convenient location as well, and has a really good demographic. Generally, a lot of the upper middle class was sort of clustered amongst that sort of immediate suburb as well. So I think it's underperformed for a number of years, and I think it's gotten back to sort of where it's rightfully meant to be around that $630,000 median. And as you can see here over the last 12 months, and even looking at the point in time data now, you can see here like days on market is still at 20 days. So the suburb is still pretty red hot, and I think it even might have a lot of steam in it to even potentially keep pushing up. So 20 days on market, and it's averaged that trend now for the last 12 months, as you can see, hence why that median house price has done what it has done. Stock on market sitting at 0.9% and inventory levels at 2 weeks, so very low supply in terms of available properties for purchase here as well, given the nature of the suburb. It's not a big suburb in Townsville, 1,700 unique dwellings, but to have only 0.9% of properties currently available for purchase is still a very low amount of supply. And with the inventory levels, all that means 2 weeks means is the time frame it would take to sell all of the current stock available there based on the velocity of purchases that are happening in that marketplace. So everything will be cleared out basically in 2 weeks if the market became redundant tomorrow. As you can see here, demand on realestate.com is quite okay. It's probably not as high as some of the other suburbs I've seen in Townsville. That's sat around that sort of Kerwin, I think it was sat around that 2,500 unique views, and so was Mount Louisa. So it's actually relatively low compared to all those other suburbs, but nonetheless, buyer demand still looks to be pretty hot here. And over the last 6 months, it's had an absorption rate of around 49%. So 109 listings and roughly 40 to 50 sales there, resulting in that 49% absorption rate. Well, look, it's a tough one for me, Bali Plains. I think the opportunity here for you as an investor might be gone. Like, there's not a lot of opportunities now you can pick up in and around Bali Plains that are sub 500,000. You might be able to pick up a good 422 between sort of 500 to 550. But what I'm finding is a lot of those 422s are sitting on relatively small blocks. They're the block sizes that are generally below 600 square meters, and they're often probably not the best investments because that land content I don't think is sufficient enough to be what's known as a investment grade property. I think you want a larger land content than at least a minimum of 600 square meters. I think when you go less than that, I think you start to move into your more subpar investment properties. So I think, look, Bowley Plains, it might have been gone here. If you're someone with a $600,000 budget, you might want to play in sort of a nice upper middle class market for a safe buy and hold investment, then Bowley Plains, I think long term might still have some good bones in it and good fundamentals to drive that median house price going forward, I think. But yeah, it is something you have to be mindful of is the new supply as well. There's a bunch of new supply coming in and around Bowley Plains that you have to be aware of. There's a new estate being built there now with roughly, I think it's about 100 new house and land packages being sold there and being constructed over the next few years. So the supply side of the market could potentially become an enemy for capital growth if you were to buy here going forward as well. But I think if you've got a $600,000 budget, there might be some upside potential there for a long-term hold, but I think the short-term gains here are completely eroded away. But if you actually noticed, this suburb came off a low base of around $435,000, and it accelerated so fast over the last 2 years, you could have made a $200,000 gain there. So I think the key takeaway here is if you are looking for opportunities around Townsville, I'd be looking at its neighbouring suburbs like Kelso and Rasmussen, which is not too far Dirigen, where you can probably still get a 422 around that low fives, high fours even, and you could potentially capitalise on making an extra sort of $100,000 to $130,000 because I think they can catch up to this median as well over the next sort of 12 to 24 months. So its neighbouring suburbs have a lot more lower entry price to get into that suburbs. Obviously, different fundamentals, different dynamics, different demographics, but you're coming in at a lower base if you were to look at sort of these other more affordable suburbs like Kelso, Rasmussen, and Dirigen in Townsville with similar sort of stock quality, and you're kind of clustered amongst sort of the same location and public amenity in and around that sort of northwest part of Townsville. So Bowley Plains, guys, was the number one hottest suburb in regional Queensland over the last 12 months. Now, as I said before, it may seem like the opportunity may have eroded away in a suburb like Bowley Plains for a property investor, but I've actually pulled up this sale here, which actually recently happened in, I think it was last month in Bowley Plains, and it was a 422 on 677 square meters of land in Bowley Plains, sold for 520,000, and most likely that's renting for roughly $600 per week. So I think you're close to a 6% yield there. And this is the type of property, if you can get your hands on one of these in Bowley Plains, and again above 600 square meters, I think you're in for a good property there. Like these are generally your low maintenance. You'll have a tenant in there straight away. You're not too far from the army barracks, so a lot of the defence force personnel like to live in these sort of properties as well, given that you're only a short commute to the army barracks. So yeah, I would be buying something like this if you can get your hands on something like this. And I know a lot of agents are doing some of the off-market transactions there. We bought a number of properties in Bowley Plains over the last 12 months that were similar to this, and the majority of them have been all off market as well. So buy something like that if you are looking to buy in Bowley Plains. But just to speak to the suburb again, so it has a low end pocket where most of the homes will sell between 500 to 600,000. I think that's kind of where the market is right now. And then you have this sort of middle end of the market where homes sell between 600 to 700. And then you have an upper end of the market where these more high end homes are selling between 700 to 800,000. But I think there is still good opportunity between 5 and 600,000, just like this one. But you have to, again, shop around and it's on a case by case basis. And you often have to jag these deals off market. So have a look at some of these properties that have sold in the area and reach out to those agents who have sold properties that are in your price range and ask them if there's anything similar coming on. I think you might have a crack at potentially getting into a really good suburb here. The next suburb is East Mackay. Now, East Mackay, the second highest performing suburb in regional Queensland right now. Yeah, look, East Mackay, for those that don't know the Mackay area, Mackay seems to be divided into two parts. You've got the north side of the Pioneer River and you've got the south side. So there's a clustering of suburbs on the south side and a clustering of suburbs on the north side. And East Mackay sits on the southeast side of Mackay, and roughly you're looking at sort of 5 to 10 minute drive into the CBD itself. But yeah, a really lovely suburb here in East Mackay. It's a suburb that I've actually been very bullish on in the last 6 months, and a suburb where I actually see a lot of good value for money and right now. So yeah, it's been one of the top performers in regional Queensland over the last 12 months, and for good reason. And as you can see here, let's have a look through the suburb profile data now. So it has a median house price of $540,000. It has roughly 1,800 unique households. It has an owner occupied percentage sitting around 63%. Its median rent per week on average is around $545 per week. Its vacancy rate at 0.2, and its yield based on that weekly rent and the median house price works out to be 5.2%. Obviously, this is just the median here, guys. So we're taking that median rent, taking that median house price. There's obviously houses that sell for a lot more in the suburb and houses that sell for a lot less. And same goes for rent houses that rent a lot less and houses that rent for a lot more. So you can get yields that are a lot different, whether they're higher and lower in this suburb as well. So just look at this on a case-by-case basis if you are looking to invest in East Mackay. But yeah, East Mackay, guys, as I said, I've been very bullish on this suburb. I think it's a suburb with a lot of really good public amenity. It's one of the older established areas of Mackay as well. It has a lovely foreshore and beach not too far from the CBD at the same time. And it's got all of the sporting precincts sort of around that East Mackay area. So I've been very bullish on that for the last 6 to 12 months, and I've bought a number of investment properties there now for clients as well, and really capitalizing on a lot of the gentrification that's happening there, the location and the public amenity benefits. I think it's a lot of good value for money there. And as you can see here, the median house price, it's grown by 30% in the last 12 months. So the median house price 12 months ago sat around that $378,000, and it's basically accumulated by 162,000 in the last 12 months, now sitting at $540,000. So yeah, look, guys, if you jumped in and had a look on realestate.com now, you'll probably find that majority of the stock that's selling in and around the area will most likely have a five in front of it. I think you have to be pretty lucky to find something maybe that has a four or a three in front of it. I think most of those opportunities now have eroded away. Um, Given that median sits at 540,000 right now, I think there's still plenty of wiggle room in that median. I think East Mackay is a suburb that could easily get to 750,000 in the next sort of 5 to 7 years. I think it has a lot of that potential, given it has really good fundamentals. So it's completely built out. There's no new land supply happening in the area. It's close to the beach, it's close to the city, it's close to, as I said, a lot of good public amenity. And what we're actually finding now, given that it's one of the older and established areas, a lot of people are actually buying a lot of these older homes and renovating them, reconfiguring them, redeveloping them. So there's a lot of gentrification also happening in and around East Mackay as well. And I think that's what's causing a lot of pressure on this median house price to really push up as well. And the properties that we purchased there, we purchased in between sort of 450 to 500,000 over the last 6 months. A majority of those properties are renting for close to $600 per week, so you can get a really healthy yield there. But I know properties, a couple of properties we looked at last week in East Mackay. When we did rental appraisals on them, like they were looking at close to $700 per week rent. So rents there are also very very high. But I still see great opportunity here to make money in this suburb, guys. I don't think the opportunity has eroded away in this suburb by all means. It's grown by 30% in the last 12 months, but I think it's got a lot of steam in the engine here, particularly when you start to see like other markets around Mackay push up, like Oralee, that has a median house price of close to 650 now, and East Mackay isn't too far from where Oralee is. And you got like Beaconsfield, Andergrove, parts of Mount Pleasant, Rural View, like Glenalla. Those median house prices are like 650,000, yet East Mackay, sitting 100 to $150,000 cheaper than them. So that's where I see a lot of still good upside potential still with East Mackay to push up in the short term and to make money there. So I think by no means the opportunity hasn't eroded away here. And actually, if you look at the point in time data now as well, it's suggesting that there's still plenty of steam in the market. So you can see here that the average days on market still sit around 30 days, which is very, very low. Stock levels currently sit at 0.3%, so stock is very tight there, a very limited number of available listings. And the current inventory levels sit at 1 month, so stock levels low, demand looks to be very high as well, with about 1,000 unique clicks per property on realestate.com. So a lot of buy, demand, and activity for people looking at property online in this immediate suburb. And then it has an absorption rate of 144% in the last 6 months as well. So sales volume has exceeded listing volume in this suburb, which suggests that demand is very high here in this suburb. So yeah, East Mackay, as I said, success leaves clues, but so do suburbs. Suburbs leave clues, and I think East Mackay still has a lot of good upside around it. But if you are an investor, might be looking for something a bit cheaper as an alternative to East Mackay, I'd be looking at its neighbouring suburbs around that sort of established Mackay, around the CBD, East Mackay, West Mackay area. I think there's some good value for money there right now in the marketplace. But yeah, East Mackay, number 2 on the list as one of the top performers in regional Queensland in the last 12 months. So I mentioned earlier that the median house price for East Mackay sits at $540,000, and there's obviously properties in the suburb that sell north of 540,000, and properties that sell less than 540. I don't have a breakdown of the pockets here, but off the top of my head, it has a low end pocket where homes sell between your sort of, I'd say, 450 to 550. It has a median end pocket where homes sell between 550 to 650, 700,000, and then a high end pocket where homes sell between sort of 700,000 up to $1 million. So East Mackay, you've got a clustering of properties that sit right on the Esplanade or near the water, close to the beach, and they're often your high end homes, your more expensive and premium quality builds, and they tend to be the upper end of the market. Then you've got these sort of back a couple of streets back from the water. You've got like sort of 600 to 800K median, then a few streets back from where they sit, you got those properties that sell between sort of 450 to 550,000. And this one sold recently on Digby Street for around $560,000, and this is a couple of streets back from the water. And this is the type of property I'd be buying if I was buying in East Mackay. And to be honest, I did have a crack at this property when it was sitting off the market, and we offered $537,000. It's a lovely double brick home, 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 car on just under 800 square meters. It had side access, the ability to add a granny flat at the back. Yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity, but yeah, we missed out to another buyer. I think they offered around that 560 from memory. That's what the agent was telling me, and yeah, you can probably still pick up properties like this in and around the suburb that I think offer tremendous upside in and around East Mackay. So if you are buying in East Mackay, yep, have a shop around. You can buy these double brick homes still for under 550. You can buy older Queenslanders that might need a bit of work under 550, and you can buy often slab on ground brick homes for sub 550 as well. So yeah, East Mackay guys, this is what your money can buy in the area. Coming in at number 3 as the third hottest suburb in regional Queensland over the last 12 months is Bundaberg East, located in Bundaberg. So we got Bundaberg East and Bundaberg, and then we got Mackay East or East Mackay in Mackay. So it looks like everyone wants to live in the east side in these different regional Queensland hubs. So there, guys, look for east side locations. I think you're going to do pretty well. No, all right, let's dive into East Bundaberg now. So it has a median house price currently of $507,000. It has roughly 1,700 households, so it's not the biggest suburb in Bundaberg. It's probably one of your more sort of medium-sized suburb in and around the area. It has an unoccupied percentage of 60%, so it's a relatively stable suburb, I would say. I generally like to see that above 65, but 60 is still in and around a pretty good ratio. It has a median rent of $480 per week. A vacancy rate of 0.1%, so an extremely tight vacancy rate there, and it's yield based on the median house price and average rent per week is 4.9%. So not the greatest of yields. You can probably get better yields elsewhere, but as I said, on a case by case basis, this is just the median house price here, the median rental price and the median house price. You're obviously going to be able to get better returns in the immediate suburb if you treat every property on a case-by-case basis, because there's certainly going to be properties renting above $480 a week and properties where you can purchase a lot less than $507,000 as well. So if we actually look at the Bundaberg performance over the last 12 months, the East Bundaberg median house price has grown by 28% in the last 12 months from $365,000, totaling a gain of $142,000 over the last 12 months. So look, the market has been surging along here in Bundaberg East, and it's actually good to see a market like Bundaberg East really take off, because a lot of its surrounding suburbs have done some amazing numbers in and around Bundaberg over the last couple of years. And Bundaberg itself over the last 5 or 6 years has grown a total of like 60 to 70% from memory. So for this suburb to continue to push up over the last 12 months, despite what its neighbouring suburbs has done, and Bundaberg as a whole is a really good thing for this individual suburb. And I think, looking back at this suburb now and reflecting on, the last 12 months and the suburb, looking at it as is, I think a lot of people are attracted to East Bundaberg because you're kind of close to Ashfield, you're kind of close to Kalki, you're not too far from Bargara. And if you look at its neighbouring suburbs, those ones I just mentioned, it's like $100,000 to $150,000 cheaper, even $200,000 cheaper than somewhere like Ashfield. Yet you can be clustered around sort of the same schools, the same shops, cafes, retail, and be very close to the beach also. So I think it's really benefited from that ripple effect happening in and around that side of Bundaberg where Ashfield and Kalki is, and they've really accelerated away. And I think people are spilling over into East Bundaberg and looking for these cheap opportunities, but still kind of be clustered around that East Bundaberg area around Ashfield and Kalki. One thing you have to be aware of though with East Bundaberg, it did flood, and certain parts of East Bundaberg did flood, and it's something you have to be aware of. So before you dive in and buy an investment property there, make sure you do your flood due diligence, jump on the local government interactive mapping tools and use those to filter, where parts of the suburbs flood. So do your flood due diligence there, because this is certainly an area that flooded. And we actually looked at a number of properties in and around East Bundaberg over the last couple of months, And the properties that we looked at when we did our flood research, they were like the flood came like literally 2 to 3 streets away from where we were proposing to buy, and we kind of went, no, we're not going to buy there. We're going to try and buy in a bit further away from where that last flood event occurred in that suburb. So make sure you do your flood research and due diligence here, guys. But look, sitting at $507,000, as I said, is still a lot cheaper than Kalki and Ashfield. I think it's got a lot of wiggle room to even push up. One of the things that does concern me, though, is I don't think there's enough really good quality stock there to continue to demand a higher premium. I think what really needs to drive up prices here is a really lack of scarcity and high buyer demand. I think that's what can continue to put upward pressure on this median. It wouldn't be necessarily caused from there being a lot of really good stock available for purchase there, because I think the stock quality in this suburb isn't that great. Like there's only a handful of sort of brick homes in this suburb that have been built in the last 15 to 20 years. Majority of the stock there is older sort of cottages and Queenslanders, and they sit on the larger blocks, so the land parcels can actually be quite nice. But yeah, I'm just finding it hard to see how this suburb can continue to push up, given that the stock isn't that great. So, if you're someone with, let's say, a $550,000 budget, you're probably not going into East Bundaberg and spending $550,000. I think you're probably going to go to Thurbeburn, Avenel Heights, Swenson Heights, even Avoca, where you can still get like a nice brick home in that area as opposed to spending it in East Bundaberg. So that's probably the only downside I see about East Bundaberg pushing up in the short term. But I think if supply remains low and demand remains high, I think that can continue to even push this median along. But if you look at Kalki and Ashfield, the reason why their median house price is so high is that, yeah, they're nice suburbs, but they got so much nice stock in there as well. Heaps of nice 4-bedroom brick homes built to really high quality. So buyers actually want to live there and buy that stock and are willing to pay that premium. Whereas East Bundaberg, I just don't see a lot of that happening. Not to say there isn't any good stock in there. There is good stock, but I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. So looking at some of the point-in-time data to see if it still has any steam in the engine. Days on market currently sitting at 55 days, and look, it's maintained that trend now for the last 9 months by the looks of it. It's not a completely hot market sitting at 55 days, but I think what's skewing this here is a lot of the flood affected properties and a lot of the older homes that need work are sitting on the market a little bit longer, so it's dragging up that average a bit. But I think like the good 4-bedroom brick homes or the ones in the non-flood areas are selling very fast. So if you are buying in this suburb or propose to, just be mindful that the better located properties and the better quality properties are actually selling faster than this sort of 55-day average here. As you can see here, stock levels extremely tight, still currently at 0.2%, so extremely tight supply levels here, and inventory sitting at 3 weeks. So you have this sort of high demand and low stock, and as I said, that can be the thing that continues to push this median house price up. Its absorption rate is currently sitting at 66% as well. So here we've had a total of 15 listings in the last 6 months and 10 sales. So look, it's still a healthy absorption rate there, and I think some of the properties that haven't been absorbed in the last 6 months in that time frame, I think they're the ones that are still sitting on the market, dragging up that days on market average, because they're the ones that are more flood affected or older, need a bit of work, so they take a bit longer to sell, dragging up that day on market average and dropping that absorption rate a bit lower than I think if it was just all the good properties that are selling in that area and not the flood affected ones and the older ones, I think that absorption rate would be 100% or above here, certainly. And as you can see here, buyer demand on realestate.com is also very high, sitting at 933 unique buyers per property. So look, guys, yep, East Bundaberg been a really good performer over the last 12 months. Good to see it performed, as many of its neighbouring suburbs have really shot up, and Bundaberg has really risen a lot also over the last 4 to 5 years. As I said, I think it's got a little bit of wiggle room to push up, but again, you have to really watch that stock quality. I think there's better quality stock in other parts of Bundaberg, and I can't really see this pushing up too much more than what it is in the medium term. Maybe in the longer term, I think it might, but in the short term, I'm just not seeing enough here in East Bundaberg. All right, now for Bundaberg East, as I said, you have to sort of treat every property on a case-by-case basis here, because it doesn't necessarily have the best stock quality, I think, to continue to drag up that median house price. I think what needs to happen here is, rather than the higher end homes pull up the median house prices, I think a bulk of the transactions need to occur where demand is higher and supply is low. So that pushes the median house price up from underneath, rather than the median being pulled up by higher end homes. So Yeah, look, there's not a lot of opportunity for good stock, I think, in East Bundaberg, but when you can get your hands on good stock, definitely have a crack at it. Now, what I see as good stock in East Bundaberg is something like this here. So this is on a street called Hoffer Court, and it's a 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1 car brick home on just over 600 square meters of land. As you can see, lovely established gardens, brick slab on ground house as well. So yeah, you can buy if you can buy these sort of brick homes, and these brick homes sit, I'd say, in the upper end of the market between that pocket of $550,000 homes to $700,000 homes. I think that's where the best buying is. Obviously, if you have a lower budget, I'd be definitely looking into those older cottages in Queensland is in that sort of 350 to 450 and 450 to 550 pockets, but you just have to ensure they're out of the flood zone and also the quality is sufficient enough to have an existing tenant in there, or if it does need work, the works required is minimal. And I think that's the trick that's the trick and the challenge you have to do when sort of playing in this particular suburb is the older stock. You just have to be mindful that you might have to sink some cash into them to get them to a point in time where they're tenant ready or getting the premium rent that you need to hold the property long term. But yeah, guys, East Bundaberg, brick homes, 422s. If you can find them outside of the flood zone between that sort of 500 to 550 price point, very good buying because they're very cheap in relation to what you can get in Kalki, its neighbouring suburb, and Ashfield also. All right, coming in at number 4 is a suburb called Coongal, and Coongal is located in Rockhampton. So, just from the list to date, we've got a good cross section of different suburbs and different regional hubs. So, we've had we've had Townsville so far on the list. We've had Mackay on the list. We've had Bundaberg, and now we've got Rockhampton. So, yeah, look, they're all having a decent crack by the looks of it. All these different regional hubs. So we can see here that Coongal has a median house price of $385,000. It has roughly 2,000 unique dwellings, so it's quite a big suburb on the north side of Rockhampton. It has an owner occupier percentage of 64%, so a relatively stable owner occupier market there. Median rents of $445 per week. A current vacancy rate of 1.5%, and its yield based on the weekly rent and median purchase price sits around 6%. So, yeah, guys, look, for those who are unfamiliar with Coongal, so Coongal sits on the northern flank of Rockhampton, and similar to how Mackay is structured, you have a clustering of suburbs on the south side of the river, and then you have a clustering of suburbs on the north side of the river. And the river here in Rockhampton is called Fitzroy River. So Coongal sits on the northern flank of Rockhampton, and you'd be, I'd say, as a crow flies, at least 5 to 10 minutes from the CBD itself, and 5 to 10 minutes from pretty much most of the public amenity around town, like the shelf cafes, restaurants, CBD, industrial precinct, etc. And you're looking at Coongal, if you were to go then to the Capricorn coast, to places like Yeppoon or Emu Park to spend a day at the beach, you're looking at roughly around a 40-minute drive from there as well. So, yeah, it's one of those suburbs that historically has been more lower socio-economic, blue collar suburbs, and it historically was a suburb that was prone to flooding as well. So if you are looking to invest in this area, just be mindful that yeah, it is a blue collar sort of lower socio-economic area in addition to it being flood affected as well. So we can see here that over the last 12 months, it's grown by 27% from 281,000, and that's equated to roughly a gain of $104,000 with its median house price currently sitting at 385,000. So look, it's coming off a really low base there, and it's really pushed up over the last 12 months. The best part of $100,000 now sitting at 385,000. And look, this is something that I was calling for a while now because I think Coongal, I think it's quite a well located suburb, and if you can stay out of the flood affected areas and where some of the rougher pockets are, like for the most part, it's a pretty good suburb, particularly where it intersects with Frenchville because it actually neighbours Frenchville, and Frenchville is one of the better suburbs in Rockhampton. It's been one of the more sort of polarizing investment hotspots over the last sort of 12 months. and been very popular for a lot of buyers agents and DIY investors. And Coongal has just been sort of its bridesmaid suburb, neighbouring suburb. So I think as a result of Frenchville really doing what it's done over the last 20 to 24 months to 12 months, Coongal as a result has now followed suit. I think given that it's been a lot more affordable, a lot cheaper, and a lot of people have gone into Coongal and seen value here. I think as a result, it's really pushing up this median house price. And actually, if you look at sort of suburbs that were similar to Coongal, so you had suburbs like Bersico in Rockhampton. It has a median house price probably a little bit higher than Coongal right now, but it kind of started at a similar base a couple of years ago and it really shot up to around that mid fours now. And Coongal's sort of similar dynamic in terms of demographic in the suburb. Similar stock is kind of having the same run now. So if you want to compare this suburb with another suburb in Rockhampton, look at a suburb called Bersica and you'll see that this suburb here, Coongal, is on a similar trajectory to it. So yeah, look, coming in at 385,000 currently now. I think you can still buy deals here for around that median house price and even a lot less. We had a crack at one on a street called Hine Street. It was being sold with Ray White a couple of weeks ago. I think it's sold now, and that recently sold for around 395,000, and that was in a really nice pocket of Google. Jump online and have a look at Hine Street. So if you can target houses in and around Hine Street, I think you're going to get good value. We just put one under contract in a street called Bloxham Street, which intersects between Frenchville and Coongal, and that's a really nice pocket of Coongal also. And we put one under contract that sits up on the hill. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double-story home on a big land parcel, no rear neighbours. And we got that under contract for 485,000. That'll rent for close to $600 per week rent. So there's plenty of good deals in and around this suburb if you can get your hands on them. And as I said, you just have to be mindful of sort of some of the rougher parts and some of the parts that flood. Because I think Coongal has a lot of good value on it still. I think the median house price, particularly in the more well-located parts of Coongal and the better quality stock, can certainly push up from 385 to 485 in the next 12 months. I think you can make another 100 grand here if you're looking to invest, but again, just stay out of the flood zones and stick to the better pockets, and I think you're gonna make money there. So I think by no means the opportunity hasn't eroded here. So if you are an investor looking particularly at the lower end of the market, and you've got like a sub 450 budget, then Coongal could potentially be a suburb for you because I think it's still got plenty of steam in the engine. And looking at the point in time data suggests that, yeah, it's still a market that's on the rise. So we can see here that stock levels currently sit at 0.3%, so it's extremely tight. Inventory sitting at 4 weeks, so supply all round is very low there. Days on market sitting at 36, and it's maintained that trend for the last 12 months. So look, you've got low days on market, low levels of stock, looking really good still from the data right now. Absorption rate currently sitting at 120%. So over the last 12 months, sales have exceeded listings. So just goes to show that people are snapping up properties as they become available in the suburb. And listing views on realestate.com is very high as well at 986 unique buyers. Look, guys, that's a pretty good number. I'm actually surprised that there's that many people looking in a suburb like Coongal, given that, given the local stigma, it being sort of a lower socioeconomic area, blue collar area. I'm actually surprised that a lot of people are searching on realestate.com there. But as I said, I think it's really benefited from the bridesmaid effect. It's affordable. A lot of first home buyers are going into this market. A lot of people are seeing good value around where it intersects with Frenchville, and I think as a result, yeah, people are going in and buying in this suburb. And yeah, if you're an investor, I think there's certainly money to be made here in Coongal, guys. Now, for Coongal, just to give you some further insight about the suburb, so I think it has 3 distinct pockets right now. So it has a lower end of the suburb where homes would sell between sort of 250 to 350. And what you find is most of these houses are either in the flood zone or these houses are the ones which require a lot of work. So they're older cottages or Queenslanders that need some form of renovation done to them, and hence why the lower price point. So you've got this low end of the market here. You've got the sort of middle end of the market where a lot of stock sells between sort of 350 to 450. And this is probably a bulk of the stock right now, and you could probably pick up your sort of older weatherboard home or older Queensland or older cottage in this price point in this suburb, maybe in the flood zone or just outside of the flood zone as well. And I'd find that majority of these properties might need a little bit of work or just on sort of borderline being, satisfactory, I think, to have a tenant in there from the get-go. And I think there might be a bit of maintenance involved in some of these properties, given that they're a little bit older. But yeah, if you can jag something that's in good condition between 350 to 450, I think you've done very well there in buying in Kooringal. I think I have this upper end of the market where homes sell between sort of 450 to 650 as well. And these are generally your sort of nicer homes in and around where Kooringal intersects with Frenchville, or where Kooringal sort of intersects with Lakes Creek up around sort of that boundary or that part of the suburb as well. So I mentioned before, we put a property under contract in Kooringal. I went unconditional on that last week, and this is the property here. In fact, it sits on a street called Bloxham Street, and it's actually the last street that's included in the Kooringal suburb. On the other side of Bloxham Street is where all those houses fall into the Frenchville catchment, so they're the Frenchville suburb. So we bought this house here for $485,000, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on, I think, about 750 square meters, no rear neighbors, in a really good part of town. And yeah, this probably will rent for close to $600 per week, guys. So this is the type of deals that I'm buying right now in and around the Kooringal suburb. If you can get your hands on something like this, I think you're going to do pretty well long term. Because if you look at a lot of these sort of properties that have sold in and around Frenchville, even majority of those have sold for close to $600,000, mid five. So we bought the best part of $90,000 to $50,000 cheaper by just sort of being on the boundary of where Kooringal intersects with Frenchville. So that's where I see a lot of good value actually with a lot of the opportunities in Kooringal. So if you are looking to buy in this suburb, I'd be definitely trying to target stuff like this. You can also get slab on ground brick homes in and around Kooringal as well. Those would be the other opportunities I would target. But definitely your 2-story homes lend themselves to more floor area, more usable space, and you can obviously get more rental return. And if you buy a nice big land parcel, you can look at additional strategies as well, like not renovation. You can look at granny flat or subdivision as well. All right, we're about to go full circle back up to Townsville, to a suburb called Kelso, and Kelso comes in at number 5 as one of the hottest suburbs in regional Queensland over the last 12 months. So for those who don't know where Kelso is, so Kelso, I'd probably say, sits on the northwestern side of Townsville. It sort of flanks the start of the Ross River. So the Ross River runs down from the Ross River Dam, and it's sort of the first suburb that flanks that Ross River as it starts to flow through Townsville. It's actually one of the biggest suburbs in Townsville as well. So we can see here that Kelso's median house price currently sits at $477,000. It has close to 4,500 unique dwellings, so 4,250 unique dwellings. As I said, one of the biggest suburbs in Townsville. Unoccupied percentage is sitting at 68%, which is very good. Median rent sitting at $450 per week. Vacancy rate currently sitting at 1.9, probably not the lowest vacancy rate right now. Something to keep an eye on, I think, if you're an investor. And that yield sits at 4.9% based on the median rent and that median purchase price, resulting in that 4.9% median yield. Sorry. So look, guys, I know that yield is a bit sour there. I know that, and trust me, we've had a look closely at Kelso now for the last 12 months, and I've actually never bought a property in Kelso because that's one of the things I've noticed is that the numbers never stacked for me here. What I found anyway is that rent is just a bit too low in the suburb right now, particularly for those properties that have been locked into these 12-month leases, because the rental market wasn't as hot as what it is now going back 12 months ago. So what you'll find is majority of the properties are still locked into sort of a lease where you can only get around 430, 450, 470 per week, whereas market-based rent now more or less sits between sort of $550 to $600 per week for your typical sort of 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom brick home on 600 square meters in the suburb. So that's one of the things that's really probably deterred me away from Kelso, just the lower rental environment there, the lower rents, just the numbers never stacked, because obviously Townsville also has a lot more higher holding costs. Insurances are generally a little bit higher rates, property management fees. So you really need that premium rent to allow for those outgoings to cover your cost there to break even or be in a positive cash flow position. So that's probably one of the only downsides about Kelso. One of the reasons why I haven't been as bullish on Kelso as other buyers agents. I know a lot of buyers agents were smashing Kelso, particularly the ones from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and other parts of the country. They were really bullish on Kelso, and I think they still are. It's still a frenzy of buyers and still smashing that market. And as you can see, as a result of that, why Kelso has pushed up so much. I think in the last 12 months. But I think in addition to that buyers agent activity, there's been a lot of first home buyers, I think, that have moved into the Kelso market because they've seen a value in the market. There's good affordability in Kelso relative to, let's say, Douglas, Annandale, relative to Bushland Beach, Mount Low, etc. Those 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom brick homes there now are selling for like above 550, in close to 600,000 and above 600,000. So a lot of people are spilling over into Kelso because they see value. Then I think it's really benefited from that sort of price ripple effect in the last 12 months. And looking at it, guys, it's coming in at 477,000 currently. I think it still has plenty of wiggle room to grow. I think in the short term, I think it can definitely get to a 550 median. And I think a bulk of the better stock in the suburb can definitely start to sell. I can see selling at around that sort of 600 to low threes, similar to what's happening in Bushland Beach, similar to what's happening in Mount Low and parts of Bowley Plains. But you got to target the more premium stock in the suburb, like your more built 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom brick homes. And what you'll actually find in Kelso, there's a lot of sort of cookie cutter, sort of plain Jane 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom brick homes that are very similar in nature. So yeah, they often don't necessarily demand that higher price premium as the more boutique style builds. So if you can target the more boutique style builds, I think you'll be an investor that can outperform the market here in Kelso. Because as you can see, all this point in time, data suggests that it is a market that's still very red hot and has a lot of wiggle room to keep pushing up. So you can see here over the last 12 months, it's grown by 27% from a median of $348,000, so a total of $130,000 in gains over the last 12 months. So yeah, if you actually backdate it on realestate.com domain, you'll actually see a lot of these sort of 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom brick homes all selling very, very cheap. And I think Kelso was just one of those areas that was always kind of cheap in Townsville, by and large, because it was sort of a lower socio-economic, rougher part of Townsville. So a lot of their sort of upper middle class demographic shied away from this area, and it was kind of out of sight, out of mind, a bit out of Townsville as well. So it was kind of a bit of a commute into town. So it was kind of like the forgotten suburb. But now Townsville, given that it's really kicked off and other markets and suburbs have really pushed up, people have went into Kelso, I think, because of that affordability. And investors have also sort of come in and propped up that median house price as a result. But I think, yeah, it can definitely get to 550 in the short term, definitely. But if you actually look at some of the point in time data still, I think the market is still red hot. As I said, a lot of buyers agents have been buying then. I think a lot of buyers agents are still buying there to date. So 25 days on market and has maintained this trend for the last 18 months. So things are selling there very fast. The absorption rate sitting at 201%. So in the last 6 months, there's been 88 listings and 133 sales. So sales have actually exceeded listing volume there. So you can see demand is very, very high. And as you can see there on realestate.com, buyer demand is also very, very high. So you've got these two suburbs in Townsville, Bowley Plains, which is pushed up to, as I said, around that $600,000 median. You've got Kelso, a lot cheaper. And I think if I were to look at buying in Kelso versus Bowley Plains, I would definitely be buying in Kelso because I think there's so much more better value for money there. But as I said, I think if you target the more boutique quality builds, I think you're going to do pretty well in this suburb. And what you'll actually find is there's some older Queenslanders or older Besser block homes in and around this suburb in the older established part of Kelso, where a lot of the sort of blue collar demographic lives, or sort of the rougher area. I think there's some upside potential there, but you just have to navigate that particular pocket with extreme caution because I think there's a lot of undervalued property in and around the sort of old established Kelso, away from sort of where the newer homes are built. But again, you have to sort of tread through there on a case by case basis. But yeah, guys, if you are investing in Townsville, Kelso is definitely a market to consider. It's definitely a market that's still on the rise, and all the point in time data suggests that it still has a lot of wiggle room. just be mindful that long term, fundamentally, I don't think it has the best fundamentals. I think all the point in time data suggests that there's going to be short term growth here, but long term growth, I don't think from a location point of view, it's probably not the best location. It's a bit outside of Townsville. It's got a lot of available land supply around it as well, so you're probably going to see a whole bunch of new supply come into the pipeline in a market like this, which could create a bit of an issue between sort of supply and demand in that area, and obviously that can drag down median rents and that can drag down median house prices as well. But point in time data looks good, but long term, just tread carefully here, guys. But yeah, good luck with it all. Now, for Kelso, guys, as I said, it was predominantly known as more of a blue collar, rougher part of Townsville. But in saying that, like it does have some really nice properties that flank the Ross River on these larger acreage blocks that sell between sort of 700 to 900,000, and they're the upper end of the market there, but they're more sort of your rural residential properties, and they tend to be quite nice big homes. And you got this sort of lower end of the market where homes sell between sort of 300 to 500,000, the more sort of rougher patches around Kelso, and then you got this middle end of the market where most things sell between sort of 500 to 700,000 dollars. And I think there is really good opportunity in the Kelso suburb to buy in that $300,000 price point to 500,000, and as well as the 500 to 700,000. So I think if you've got a budget anywhere sort of sub 700 or sub 500, you can definitely do some deals in and around Kelso, because I think it does cater to a variety of different budgets. And if I was buying, let's say, your typical sort of investment property in Kelso on a, let's say, $550,000 budget, I'll be buying something like this. This is a property that just recently sold. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom brick home on 600 square meters. As you can see, it's your typical plain Jane in that suburb. But again, I think these ones, if you compare them to like properties in Mount Lowe, Bushland Beach, Douglas, Annandale, like you pick this property up and put them in those suburbs, you're paying $100,000 to $150,000 more. So I think there's really good value in snapping up these brick homes here, and they're generally low maintenance and appeal to sort of a wider cross section of tenants as well, and you're going to get sort of pretty good rents there over time. So I'll be targeting something like that, and then if you're paying in that lower end, I'll be buying sort of those older Queenslanders, but the ones that are in better condition or don't need any work. You can still buy them, but I'll probably say they're around that sort of mid fours to high fours. And I think anything sort of sub 350 will need a little bit of work in this suburb, guys. So, yep, Kelso. If you are buying in Kelso, definitely take a look at stuff like this. I think you're going to get a pretty good result there in the short term. However, long term, just be mindful of some of those fundamentals. Woo! All right, guys. Thank you for watching this video today. If you've watched it all the way to the end, I really appreciate you, tuning in today, and I really hope you got some value out of what was covered here today. Obviously, this is past data, so over the last 12 months. So these suburbs may not perform as well in the next 12 months, but that's for you to evaluate and do further research on. And as I alluded to today, I think some of these suburbs still have plenty of wiggle room to push up in the short term as well. But suburbs leaves clues, just how success leaves clues. So follow those clues, and because I think in all of these areas that we discussed today, I think other suburbs around those immediate areas with similar stock, similar price points, similar fundamentals are all on a similar trajectory to do some really good numbers over the next 12 months. So yeah, guys, do your research and narrow in on some of those opportunities. If you are someone that maybe wants to lean on some professional expertise to help you through that process, I'm more than happy to see if we might be able to add value. If you are someone that's struggling to buy, want to lean on local knowledge, you want to try and outperform the market, feel free to reach out to me and the team. You can visit us on that website there, give us a call on that number, and we can have an initial chat to see if we might be able to add value to your journey. In addition to that, you can follow me on Instagram as well. I post a bunch of free content daily there as well, and giving you further insights about the regional Queensland property market in bite-sized chunks. So you get some bite-sized insights and tips about how to go about navigating the regional Queensland property market. So if you are someone that likes my YouTube content, feel free to follow me on socials as well, and I'm very active on Instagram, and you can even DM me, and we can talk specifically around your situation and what properties you're looking to buy. Cheers, guys, and again, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video. My name is Troy Bassini, owner, and out.